that wanted to see the building, actually get in the building. But the key really is to show off the building and get people inside. The third was our Pluck a Duck fundraiser in November, which is extremely successful. We doubled our goal, and it was a lot of fun. The cooperated, and it was just a lot of fun. We hope to do it in 2022 too. We've been working and networking with foundations in the area, and actually have found a foundation in Janesville, Wisconsin, that helps preserve buildings in small communities. And they did a site visit, which was extremely rare, and they fell in love with the building. So we look forward to working with them closely. The next step with the process is that we've raised enough money now to hire an architect and commission a historic structure survey. The survey could cost anywhere between $10,000 to $100,000, but we think that ours will range about, because the building's not very ornate, it's pretty simple, probably about $30,000 to $40,000. We have pledged to cover half that cost. With the historic structure report, it details the history of the building, the current condition of the building, and potential uses in the future, along with cost estimates. And this will become our roadmap, our solid roadmap for the project itself. So once we have all of that information in one package, then we can start approaching individual donors and other organizations. We're so new that it's a plus and a minus. The downside is that we have no history in raising funds, and we have no history in preservation work. But once we have this survey done, will give us some credibility with the larger donors. We've been fortunate this year to receive 3 large donations of $10,000, which helps push us to hire the architect. Next year, actually in January 15th, we're going to be having a 80th anniversary celebration. It'll be 80 years since the building was dedicated, and we expect this event to be fun too. We have all-day events. At 8:30, we'll have free coffee and donuts in honor of the USO heritage. At 10 o'clock, we're going to have a military convoy come through town. Then we'll have presentation by Dr. Everett Smith, Women in the USO, and dinner dance that evening from 5:30 to 9:30. We have a 17-piece orchestra coming, and Robbie Lee's doing the catering. It'll be a dinner dance. We also have the ladies from the World War II USO Preservation Group out of Wisconsin. They're coming and they're doing quite a large display, and they're extremely excited about coming and actually being in a historic USO building. So I think that the word is getting out, and bringing awareness to the project is critical. Getting people in the building is critical, because once they get in, they fall in love with the building. They understand the history. So I just wanted to give you an update. We're in compliance with our insurance coverage. We've paid all our bills, our utilities and electric. So we're really happy that in the last 6 months we've made big strides. So I'm happy to take any questions, comments. No?
I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. I think the community is really pleased with what you're doing, and getting excited as time is going on, and all your updates and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the community has been extremely supportive, and they know this something is happening now. You can see things happening, so we're excited too. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Okay, under public comments, this section is limited to agenda items. You give your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes to address the chair, unless previously requested additional time. And first, we have Mr. Jim Mwanawasu.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Mwanawasu, 10 East Liberty Street, Newton Falls.
Would you mind, Jim, putting that mic up a little bit? Thank you.
Under approval of previous minutes, Mayor, I spoke with you I also sent an email to Mrs. Stimpert because she's at large and my councilman, Mr. Granchi. I wanted to address the closing comments that were made and aimed at me concerning the lawsuit filed by Mr. Lynch. I had asked the clerk to have the tape available and was going to have it played and discussed at length. However, I'm going to reserve the right to address this further with any balance of time I may have at the end of the meeting. I believe in this council that you have the integrity and the decency to judge and control your own members. I'd like to further address some of the other agenda items, however. Resolution number 10, to ask Mr. Axiotis to resign. I'm surprised to see that back on the agenda. When it failed to get a second at the last meeting, I realized it was to remove him, but I'm surprised to see after it failed to get a second that we would put it back on the agenda again. And number 14, the motion to accept the city manager's recommendations for the smart meters. I've done a lot of research in the last week and had Kathy send me some information and some of the council minutes. And to have a rate, you have to have an ordinance. And I went way back to when this first came up, and Mr. Lynch used the ordinance from the water rate study that was done in 2011 or 2012, and the ordinance that we all know that was wrongly used to set these rates and set this opt-out program up. And Kathy sent me the minutes from October 4th of this year, and I could not find in there any place where there was an ordinance number. I did find that there was a motion made by Mrs. Spletzer and seconded by Mr. Bariak that shows that resolution 25-2021 was made to cancel the smart meter program that opt-out that had been set up by the previous city manager, and it passed by a vote of 4-1. Later in that meeting, Mrs. Spletzer made a motion, seconded by Mr. Bariak, to approve the opt-out cost as presented for the water and the electric meters, and that motion passed 5-0. Well, in my research, I happened to read further up into the minutes, and earlier in that meeting, Mrs. Spletzer had a conversation with Mrs. King and the law director over a resolution that she had sent in about the sewer rates, and she had sent it as a resolution, and it had turned into an ordinance. And Mr. Fritz had clearly said that if you wanted it to affect the rates, it could not be a resolution, it had to be an ordinance. And Mrs. King noted that you cannot amend an ordinance with a resolution. Rates are set by ordinance. A resolution will not do with setting rates. So therefore, as far as I can find, there has never been an opt-out program set by ordinance. So as Mr. George said at the last meeting, I don't think that we have anything in place, and I don't think council has done their due diligence on this. And the last item that I want to address is number 16, the paying for the meter on the house. If you're going to pay for one person's meter, then the rest of us would like to have our meters paid for also. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Adam Zimmerman, would you like your 10 minutes? Okay,
What did he say?
he doesn't want it. All right. Speak. Yeah, that's fine. All right, you made it clear. Thank you. Anybody else would like a 3-minute address? You can just step up, give your name, your address. You have 3 minutes.
Mike Watney, Superintendent of the wastewater. Just want to address the resolution 39/2021 is on again. There was a lot of discussion about it last time. What I'd just like to address is I would like you to look closely at it. There's still, you see, there's a number of employees here again. There's a lot of, I don't know whether unhappiness, uneasiness maybe is the better choice of words in reference to this. Some things have changed in the resolution. I am aware of that, had discussions with that. Uh, it, there's the potential for some very expensive out-of-pocket costs to the employees that go over and above the deductibles. It could get, for a single person, you could be in the area of at least $3,000 out of pocket, if not more. If it's a employee and a spouse, it jumps up again. It gets over $4,000. A family, it could be over $6,000. Those are maybe extreme numbers, but it's possible with the way it is. I would ask you to just consider alternatives, whether we can work through this plan and either tweak it and maybe get some maximums put in place that might help the employees feel a little bit better. Or, I guess another option, maybe it's not an option, is, if whatever the cost difference might be from the current plan versus what the new plan would cost the city, and the costs are passed along to the employees through a payroll contribution, something like that. The employees aren't asking for anything for free or a free ride. It's just there are some unknowns and some possibilities of some expensive out-of-pocket numbers coming from this. Everybody's aware that change is coming as needed. No, again, nobody wants a free ride or expects everything to stay for free. It's just some of the upfront monies could get very expensive very fast for the employees, and I think that's where a lot of the uneasiness is coming from. Where other options could maybe budget better for or something like that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Katie Carl, 128 West Quarry. There's quite a few things that you have on the agenda this evening that are questionable. And the Brian Axiotis, or Mr. Axiotis, when something gets put on the agenda and then it's brought back the next meeting, it's considered a fail if it doesn't pass or come up the first time, and then it's not supposed to be legally put back on the complete next agenda legally. So my question would be, why is it on here? And the insurance is one of those. That's a big one. Why is it on here? Under whose authority is it on here? Especially, how many insurance companies did you go to and where? And did you do a presentation for the employees and for everybody? How many companies did you go to for everybody? This is something huge. And is it something you have to do before the end of the year? And why is it by a resolution and not an ordinance? And it cannot be on tonight's. And I guess my question would be also, since none of this was publicized, none of this can be passed by emergency tonight. My question would be, who authorized this? Since was no publication allowed, since you decided to switch the meetings. I question all of this, and our law director and prosecutor is one position per the charter. Why is it okay to, I talked to the city manager on the phone, and she said after the first of the year, that's going to be separated. You can't arbitrarily change that unless it comes before us, the voters. Who decided that that was okay? Did you guys decide to put that on the ballot, would be a question for all of you. Are you going to put that on the primary ballot? And why is this separated? And always in the past, if we had a law director that decided to have somebody else doing the prosecution, they paid out of their own pocket. We didn't hire a law firm to do all of our work. We had a law director that did the prosecuting. And this is a lot of money. Excuse me, please. A lot of money for us taxpayers to have to stomach. And we're already stomaching a subcontractor that's sharing the office of our city clerk. The only legal position we have right now is our city clerk. I don't know if you realize that, but us taxpayers are really having to swallow a lot right now.
Okay, Ms. Caroni, time.
It's a lot for us to have to handle at the moment. Thank you.
Adam Zimmerman, 515 Lake Avenue. First of all, I'd like to address the city health insurance with third-party administrator, WJL Administrative Services, LLC. I want to address the fact that this is a huge conflict of interest and possibly a very big ethics violation. This was incorporated in 2018 by Debbie Lavelle. Deborah Lavelle might be a name that's familiar to everyone, as this is the name that Matt Evans named last week, which led to his firing, as he questioned the connection. Lavelle was Pam's former office manager for one of her companies. Debbie's listed Pam as a BFF and bestie on Facebook, 2018 and in 2020. Page 10 of the Ohio Ethics Law Overview says that conflicts of interest restrictions, use of authority, the RC 102.03, Section D. The use of position to secure benefit. The conflict of interest law prohibits a public official or employee from using or authorizing the use of his or her public position to get a benefit for the official or employee or anyone else. Excuse me. Yes, sir.
Excuse me. There's no proof of anything that there's any benefit or anything, so don't allege it.
Oh, I'm reading the ethics law.
That's nice. That's not even a part of
Excuse
the
me, you're
agenda.
not allowed to address me when I'm speaking.
That's not a part of the agenda.
Sure is. Ethics are part of this.
No, it's not.
Sure
No,
is.
it's, your time's running. No, it's not.
You're interrupting me, sir.
I'm going to interrupt you and have you go sit back down and think about what you're talking about.
No, sir, I'm here at the podium.
Well, that's nice. You got about 2
Okay, the last sentence reads,
They said that you're not to suggest any impropriety. There's no benefit
I'm not
coming.
suggesting, I'm showing the connection between her and the third-party
That's not
administrator.
part of the agenda.
I'm showing what the RC shows.
Oh.
The third-party administrator for the insurance is on the agenda. It's right there.
You're alleging something.
No, I'm not. I'm saying the
Yes,
connection.
you
I'm
are.
reading the law. I'm not alleging anything. I'm reading the law.
Point of order, Mayor. We're not here to argue.
I'm not here to.
We're not here to argue.
That's
The
not
chair
part of the
said,
agenda.
the chair's made a
The
rule.
last few words are closely connected, which I approve that she is closely connected.
Just get through it.
Let's talk about the contract for interim law director. The contract for the interim law director, $165 per hour, 8 hours a day, 2 days a week, plus additional hours. That comes out to $137,280 if you go out for a year. 2 prosecutors at $145 per hour, 8 hours a day, twice a week, plus additional time as needed, is an additional $241,280 if you take this out for a whole year. Comes to a total of $378,560. We were paying Mr. Fritz $65. That's 6 times the amount for the same work that Mr. Fritz was doing. Think about that. The resolution regarding Brian Otis to resign. Last meeting, Julie Lemon said that he, Brian, represents the community and needs to be held to a higher standard. I would like to ask Julie, everyone else here behind me, and everyone sitting up here, including you, Mr. Barron. all of everyone needs to be held to a higher standard, correct? Even everyone up here. We have a councilwoman who shall remain nameless on video, swear and spit.
That's not on the agenda.
It's part of this.
Your time's up anyways.
Thank you.
Brian Axiotis, 315 Adams Street, Newton Falls. I'm not even here to talk about me. Don't worry about me. You guys do what you're going to do. It's a game you want to play, we'll keep playing. What I am here to talk about is the agenda item about health insurance. You guys said you want transparency. You guys have said that so many times you want transparency. This doesn't seem transparent. There is a lot of questions people have, a lot of concerned citizens here. Then some of the people who are going to be affected by this came up here and spoke, hoping that it was an open door policy. Instead, one of the guys got fired for speaking. Other one got reprimanded. Is that the kind of bosses you guys want to work for? Is that the kind of people you want to lead the city? When somebody speaks at a meeting because they have concerns that they're going to be threatened with the loss of a job, it's unconscionable, especially around Christmas. I mean, where's your heart? Where's your compassion? You know, is that who we want working here? Is that who we really want doing that job? That's just, these people are worried about their livelihoods. They're worried about the out-of-pocket costs that are astronomical. And these people do hit that. I had $9,000 out of pocket myself where I worked once. It's a concern. And if it's a money thing, then let's find money in other places. Let's get rid of the $2,000 we're going to spend allowing for drinks. Let's get rid of taping basketball games and football games. Let's tighten the belt some. Find the money for healthcare, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you ask anybody, would you rather have basketball games and football games taped or healthcare for the employees? I'll take healthcare all day long. These guys do a fantastic job for us. Our electricity is hardly ever out. When it is out for a short period of time. But I know there's other companies that service around here that sometimes they're out 16 hours or longer. These guys are Johnny on the spot. Our water, and there's a problem with water, they're on it. Dude, why don't we take care of our own? I mean, seriously, that's the thing we should be doing here. And if there's concerns, have a meeting. Let's talk it over. I'm sure people can understand and come to a meeting of the minds. And everybody might not be happy when they leave at the end of the day of what they got, but they're going to be happier than just being told to do it or take it. And this is what it's going to be. And I think we can do better. I really do. I think we can do better. All of us. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Tim Simpson, 253 Arlington. I don't really have an agenda to speak on other than a couple of things that I'll shoot from the hip on. Number one, the smart meters. What Mr. Luwaniwansu has been saying for the last couple of meetings, I haven't been able to be here in a couple, but I wholeheartedly agree. And the new information that he shed on that we were paying service charges all that time was eye-opening to me. Again, I've been kind of against this from the beginning. It was kind of, I spearheaded the new opt-out fee thing from the beginning. And that was, of course, before I knew that we were doing the service charge to begin with. You know, vote against the city manager's recommendation. It's not fair to the citizens. I understand that we're in a world of hurt as far as our financial situation, and the contract was bad to begin with. But there's a different situation there's got to be a different resolution that we can come up with to just make it equitable. But just voting no, it's not fair to all the people that were told just wait, hold on, let's see what the outcome is, or an opt-out fee that was so astronomical that it didn't make sense and probably wasn't legal to begin with. Number two that I'll speak on is as far as the insurance goes for the employees. What Mr. Axiotis just said is absolutely correct. I 100% agree with him. our electric department, we had a power outage this past week, and I thought for sure the power was going to be out for hours, especially after we recently got rid of one of the guys on the electric department. But it was back on within 30 minutes, I would say, and it was probably even less than that. So, like I told you up there, their benefits is part of their package overall financially. How my employees do it, that's how every businesses do it. That's part of their benefit package. And, it's part of their salary. It's what they look at when they're employed. Now I get, I'm not privy to, I don't know what the actual costs. I haven't looked at any of that stuff. I just know what I heard and what you guys kind of explained. But they look at that as a package, and to keep good people, I would be for that, because they are absolutely the ones that make the city go. Nobody up here makes the city run. It's really those guys back there. So that's my 2 cents on that. And I guess that's it. Thank you.
Julie Lemon, 2750 East River Road. Regarding Resolution 41-2021, approving the contract for an interim law director, I think he's done a fantastic job for the community, and it's more than well deserved. Also on number 10, Resolution 42-2021, I actually went to my first zoning and planning meeting last Tuesday, and they're never taped. This is just one of the meetings that are taped. And I will say that 4 of the 5 people that were on that committee behaved with decorum and professionalism. It's not appropriate when their chairman called every single person that got up to speak their mind or speak on a subject a liar, including he did it to, and I'm talking about Mr. Axiotis, and he even called Tom James a liar, and that what he had been doing since 1984 with his sign was wrong. Every step, but when Mr. James gave it to him, he said, "You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong." He called Tom Coliseum a liar, he called me a liar. He argued with everybody. I wish he would resign, but he's got too much pride to do that. So I'm asking that if any of his fellow committee members are listening, take a look at the behavior. I actually videotaped it. If anyone wants to see it, I'll show them the videotape. But one person that stuck out to me, they all stuck out to me, was Mr. King. I thought he was a pretty good, upstanding fellow, and for him to go back on the zoning board, I think he'd be an asset. He would still be an asset. He'd be an acquired asset as well. So, and number 16, the motion to authorize the electric department to remove the smart meter from the house located on 312 Ridge Road. I've been asked to speak on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Robert and Jamie Klein. And there was damage that was done because of this being placed on their home. And Aclara is taking care of that situation. But what people don't realize is that it was put on their garage, which they don't have electric running to. There was a cap on it. There's another building. There's no electric running to that too. In fact, there was wires hanging down. They were waiting to see what they were going to do with each building, which is why they were not being charged electric for it. But then Aclara came in and put 3 smart meters on each building, and 2 of them, they technically trespassed. Both Mr. and Mrs. Klein were at work when this happened. They got a sticker on the door. No one was home, and it says someone over 18 had to be there. That never happened. So they want to opt out. This actually destroyed property in their home. They want to opt out.
Ms. Lindy, your time is.
So please consider number 16 as well. I thank you.
Brad Cope, 2780 East River Road. Here, just real quick, just want to say if you guys, you got dismissal on your executive session again. I don't know if you're considering dismissing the chief. I was here over a month ago. I expected to come back from being out of state and him being back as our police chief. I've heard nothing as to why, just open investigation. You guys are paying them to stay home when money's tight. It makes no sense to me. I think sometime you guys need to at least start filling people in. I got my assumptions on why you're doing this. And if they're true, then you guys are out of line. That's my opinion. But just want to say, if you're thinking of dismissing the chief tonight, you should at least let everyone know ahead of time, because I think there's a lot of people that, I know the police department supports the chief, and there's a lot of people that probably want to vote for him. So,
Chelsea Harper, 128 West Quarry. Sorry, I had my breath. So, so a couple of things on the agenda. One is the insurance. You guys bust my butt all the time. And it failed last week. At least I'm pretty sure it failed for obvious reasons. And you're listening to everybody in this city. These guys work their butts off. At least do them a favor and not post it on Facebook. Do the guys a favor and have an actual face-to-face meeting. Smart meters and like smart meters. There's one other thing that we were talking about on here. I'm sorry. You have to give me a second. I really would run the board. I'm trying. Okay, yeah, actually, the smart meters, if you're gonna remove one person's smart meter, you should remove other people's. I understand that there was damage, but my mom and I weren't home the other day. I get home and everything's blinking in the house. So obviously, due to them reporting that their fridge is like gone and blown up, obviously they're gonna check ours. Thankfully, ours is okay. But I mean, I have animals in my home. The last thing that I need to come home to is something not working like a heat lamp, which would be rather terrible. I don't know if you guys know what happens to certain animals when they don't have heat lamps on, but it's not good. Yeah, he did. Sean Housley. Okay, so I have no issues with him. He seems like a generally good person who tends to understand math. But the problem is, if you're going to backdate his contract, it means you should backdate what you're going to pay him, which means you shouldn't be making the $2,800 a week. It should be something else, like what's in the contract. You can't backdate something, but not backdate the whole thing. So if you're going to do that, kind of use a little bit of like proper terms, or maybe change the terms in it, I guess. The other thing is, like, Miss Pretty going to end up being the city manager? Like, are we giving her the right to vote on things that are going to be $25,000 if she's not? I'm not sure how that really works, but I think that somebody should actually have their position in order to get the rights to that position. As a sit-in person, like a finance director or anyone else, you should probably have that job before you make life-changing decisions for everybody in the city.
Sandra Turner, 231 South Center Street. I'm just here for the piggybacking on what they were saying about the insurance, and I just want to bring light to you guys. These guys haven't had much of a pay raise. Their pay rates haven't gone up in over 15 years. They got a 3% pay raise. What was it last year? Equals to about what, 54 cents an hour. So if you throw this insurance on them, not only are they not getting pay raises, they're getting pay cuts. Okay, these are the guys I know firsthand. They're the ones getting called at 3 o'clock in the morning when there's sewer in somebody's basement. Somebody's water's not flowing. Somebody's electric's out. So it's your job to take care of these guys. The city's here for them. You guys need to be here for them. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, we'll move into reports. Mr. Sirotko, do you have anything to report?
No.
Mr. Boriak, do you have anything for Ward 2?
Yes. I met with the city manager and the finance director for over 2.5, almost 3 hours to try to tweak this insurance. And I don't know if any of you ever heard the old saying about getting blood out of a stone. Well, we were able to get blood out of a stone. I also met Monday with all the supervisors and we went over it. There's a lot of misinformation. The plan's very good. We tweaked it. It'll come up. One of the things, we tweaked the plan down $1,000 on the deductible down to $1,500. We're trying to do the best we can, but the other parts of the community right now have to be thought about too. And we're trying to do the best we can for the employees. There's not going to be any roads fixed this year. We don't anticipate any. The income tax is going to be flat at $940,000. There's no money in the budget for your cost of living. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place trying to shape it. And I'm not saying it's your fault, but we've been left with stuff that we have to correct for the past administration. One other thing I'd like to bring up on economic development side, Monday, the 20th, at 10 a.m., the new smoke shop will be opening. This fellow that's opening the smoke shop has done a tremendous amount of investment in this community. He'd like everybody to come out. There's going to be refreshments served. And I'm glad that we can have another business open up in town. I'll reserve the rest of my comments for when we come up to the, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Fletcher, do you have anything for Ward 3?
Yes, I do, Mayor. I want to make sure I get the right paper with me. I was also at that meeting with Mr. Bariak and the city manager and the finance director concerning the insurance. That was on Friday. We met for over 2 hours on Friday. And then again on Monday, Mr. Bariak and I and Mrs. Pretty and Mr. Hoffley sat down with the superintendents and also went over the insurance. And one of the things that I wanted to share, finding the right paper, is the amount of money that the city does pay for these insurance plans. And I found it. I do want to share it with you. For a single employee, the insurance cost that the city pays for is $14,695. For an employee with a spouse, the cost to the city is $20,971. For an employee with a child, that cost is $19,552. And for an employee that gets the family plan, the cost to the city is $27,298. So I just want you guys to understand how expensive these costs are. And while I was doing some other work with the budget and Mr. Housley, I'm just going to give you an example because insurance is one form of your compensation. And something that I did mention to the supervisors on Monday when we were in that meeting is that not only do they get their rate per hour, they also get the insurance. And something that they probably don't think about or consider is the amount that the city is paying on their behalf into OPERS or PERS, whatever you want to call it. That rate for a standard employee, the city pays 14% into your retirement. Now, if you're in the police department gets 18.1%. I've got some numbers in front of me and I'm just going to share them with you as an example. If an employee makes like $53,000 a year, the total cost to the city in the budget for that one employee is $88,000 in your total compensation package.
Mr. Grant, do you have anything for Ward 4?
I do not.
Okay. Ms. Stimpert for at large.
I do not.
Okay. Sean, do you have anything for finance?
Sure.
Just a few quick items. I wanted to mention that on November 12th, I presented a draft 2022 budget, and the best that Pam and I could do was present one that the general fund ending cash balance was projected to be a negative $85,000. And it's taken a lot of work, including the efforts that we put into this health insurance plan and some other items too. And currently, or at the end of this year, our general funds projected ending cash balance is 44,000, which is not high enough, considering that it's estimated to spend during 2021 over $2 million. That's not very much at all. And our estimated ending cash balance 2022 is currently at $83,000. So there's still not enough of a reserve for the general fund. And this does take into consideration the current health plan in front of us. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, does anybody on the council have any questions, comments, or current concerns for Mr. Housley?
Mr. Housley, just one, if you can clarify this. When we discussed it, you were there with, and also we discussed it with the supervisors. To keep the Burnham and Flowers the way it was, we would have had to have, is it true we would have had to have $300 per single person, $690 per family, which totals up 310 is 3,000, 3,600, which a year, which had been a cost, which is way over $1,500 deductible, and $690 per family. Are those figures accurate? Well, but the bottom line was that all the plans we looked at, I want to ask another, all the plans we looked at brought us way was it 200 to 300,000? I don't have the right now until we get to the thing. Were they all about $200,000 to $300,000 over what even above what we stretched to and wrenched out?
So you directed the question towards me, so I'll do my best to answer it. I know Pam also has the answer, so.
Oh, but all right,
Correct me.
I'll wait.
No, I'm ready.
All right.
Mayor. So, okay, so to answer your question, I believe that the renewal for the current plan came in at about approximately 175,000.
Yeah.
So, but even when you compare apples to apples, other plans came in. When I say apples to apples, when you compare plans with similar deductibles that we presented as a final plan that's in front of you on May, they came in around between 163,000 and more. It came in at greater than the current plan that's in front of you right now, to the best of my. And then, in regards to your first request about the $300 to $600, I believe you may have been referring to. We were originally going to ask that the employees contribute towards the premiums.
Yes.
So the $300, I think we were originally estimating that contribution to be 15%, which is how you get the $300 on an approximate $2,000 premium. But we all know that the employee premium is more than $2,000 a month for family. So it fluctuated around 300. But what we've done with this new plan is we currently have not budgeted for any employee contribution towards the plan. And this current plan is set up so it's a 100% plan. It's set up in a way that the maximum out-of-pocket cost is set at about $1,500 plus co-payments. So, which is much less than the 15% initial employee contribution that we were looking. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does, sir. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have anything for Mr. Housley?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Blitzer, you have the floor.
Okay, Mr. Housley, when I was looking over the budget items that you sent to us, in the 602 account, the employee benefits, I do see that you've budgeted $1 million. And I believe the other stuff that we looked at with the Barnum and Flowers and the the medical mutual and the Anthem and the other plans, those were what were taking us over $1 million. Am I right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Blitzer? Okay. Anybody else have anything for Mr. Housley? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the law director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything for the public session. I would like to address council during the executive session. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Schrader? Mr. Bariak, you have the floor.
Mr. Schrader, there was a comment made at the public forum, and I want to ask, we have two prosecutors, but one goes one day and one goes another.
That's correct.
So we're not paying two prosecutors a stipend. It's just, we have one guy prosecuting now. So I don't know where that came from, where we're paying two guys to prosecute. And we'll discuss that when we go with the
Okay, thank you.
thank
Just so you know, we have been talking to the finance director too. There's a lot of expenses over there that we think we can cut. I spoke earlier with the judge, and the mayor came in with that meeting. The judge is amenable to cutting anything that we can cut without hurting his operation, obviously. And some things like Wi-Fi accounts, I hope we could consolidate. We just have to make sure it doesn't interfere with the independence of the judge, of the court. But he's on board with trying to cut some of those expenses as well. So Sean and I will over time report what we're able to save you on that. So thank you very much. Also, just so it's on the record, and we probably ought to get a fact sheet on it, but there's absolutely nothing in that contract about working, the law director working 8 hours a day, 2 days a week. I'll work whatever number of hours I need to get the job done. Lately, it's been a lot because there's a whole lot of problems that have occurred over the course of years that we're trying to work our way through. But we think we're making some progress on that as well. So it should cost you a lot less as we go forward. Second, we'll get a fact sheet out on what it actually cost you last year for legal services, but it actually was closer to $300,000 last year because a lot of the civil stuff was actually contracted out to a private law firm. The charge as high as $700 an hour and as low, and I think the average was $400 or $500 an hour. But we're not doing that. We will handle the civil stuff ourselves. So I think that brings you up to date. The other thing I think I can make public is that I spoke to the chief assistant of the county prosecutor's office, who informed me that they had been paying the former law director directly into his pocket an amount of money to offset what it costs to prosecute for the townships that are in the Newton Falls Municipal Court District. I suggested to him that I felt the more moral way to do that would be to pay the village that money, not pay me directly. So he's working on that. He thinks that might actually save some work for both sides, the village and the county. So I'll try to keep you updated on those things as they progress.
I would like.
Yeah, see, let somebody else get it first before you get your second. Ms. Blitzer, you want the floor?
Thank you. I noticed that under new business, item number 1 is ordinance 2021-32.
Right.
And item number 9 is resolution 41-2021.
Right.
Basically, they're essentially the same thing, and I just don't know why one is an ordinance and the other is a resolution.
Well, we've been working now since mid-October and haven't even been able to get a bill out because we don't know what the agreed upon rates are. So the purpose of the I told you when I started, I would have preferred that you, if you're gonna hire us, do it by way of an ordinance and don't do it as an emergency. Read it twice. Of course, to do that now, it'll take us into January. We don't, think it's gonna be good for your budget if we wait until January to pay about the last quarter of the year of 2021 and put it into the 2022 budget. So the resolution's intent is to allow us to send those bills for what we've already done and the village to pay it, knowing that you're not going to have that finalized ordinance until January 5. That was the purpose of that.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Spitzer? Okay, Mr. Franchi, Ms. Stenberg, or Mr. Srocco, did you have anything? No. What's that?
None this time.
Okay, Mr. Barek, did you want a second address?
I just would like to ask a question. Is that where we got the $186,000, the total for the, paying the Cleveland law firms and all that?
You know, I like to get things straight, and I don't have my notes on that. I know I ran a tape, and that was about the amount, or maybe a little higher, just from 2021. There also were substantial charges in 2020 and 2019 for a private firm. So I think that's a pretty good ballpark number, but I'd like to get it down to the cents for you.
Yeah, what I'd like to say to the public tonight, that money was to defend the past administration, wasn't it?
A good portion of it, yeah.
Against, I think, one of our own citizens, and I apologize to the bottom of my heart because I like Mr. Owonawansu. As a matter of fact, when Mr. Lynch sued him, and I'm going to tell him, I gave $1,000 for his retainer. I have nothing against Mr. Owonawansu. I think he's a good man. And I'm sorry if it came out wrong about the smart meters. I'm very sorry, but I do not want to rub any kind of friction about it. Thank you.
Anybody else want an address for the law director before we move on? Okay,
If not, the only other thing I want to say is Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. City manager.
Yes, I was not able to get you guys out a city manager report this past week. It's been hectic, as you know, but I did want to let council know that we've received 2 subpoenas this week on a couple of employees from various state organizations for potential criminal charges. So we've passed those on to the law director to look at those and see what type of records those agencies are going to need. I have spent a good amount of time with BCI regarding the previous administration. So that was done this week. I've spent a lot of time on the health insurance with Mr. Housley and the employees, and also council members. And that's all I have for my report.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns for the city manager?
I do have may I address?
Yeah, you have the floor, Ms. Spitzer.
One of the questions that I have gotten, and I believe I've discussed this with you, but I want to make sure that everyone hears this. The amount that the deductibles are, I'm sorry, the deductibles are cumulative for a family, is that correct?
Correct. It's a $1,500 individual. And how it works is, obviously, if you have one person, they have to pay $1,500. If you have 2 people, then they have to pay the $3,000. But if you have 3 or more, it's an accumulative. If you have 6 family members, they can accumulate to the $4,500. Nobody has to meet the $1,500. It can't accumulate.
Okay, anything
Okay,
else?
I'm sorry. One more. For example, if one family member, if, let's say there's 3 members in the family, if one family member meets that 4,500,
No, it's not a 4,500 for one family member. The max is 1,500 per individual.
can one person meet the deductible for the entire family though?
No,
It's 1,500 per person?
per person to the max of 4,500 per family.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a quick question.
Okay, you have.
Thank you. Mrs. Spletzer and Mr. Bariak attended the health insurance meeting here at the office, yeah. Were
Mrs.
council members,
Ma'am, would you
ask-
pull that mic over? I wish we could get them both the mic.
were all council members asked to come or given the opportunity to come to that meeting?
You can't have council members, all of you at that meeting.
I understand there could be
Tessa,
two.
Tessa is on the administrative and financing committee. Mr. Sirotko was also on it, but he was unable to attend. And Mr. Bariak was the one we got at the very last minute.
So the 3 of you were invited? Were you informed? Okay, thank you.
Okay, did you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Does anybody else have an address for the city manager, Mr. Srajko, Mr. Granchi? Okay. And I don't have anything to report since the last meeting. Changes to the agenda, I don't believe that we have any, do we? Okay, all right. For the approval of the previous minutes, for us to, instead of going one by one, to approve them all by slate, all at one time, do we need to make a motion to do so?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, whenever Mrs. King is ready for the roll.
Stemper? I'm going to abstain. I was only in attendance for one meeting.
Sirocco?
Yeah.
Bariak?
Yes.
Fletcher?
Yes.
Franchi?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll pass them all together as one. So if we have a motion to pass November 15th caucus, November 15th regular meeting, December 2nd special meeting, December 6th special meeting, public hearing, and December 6th regular meeting by slate. Do we have a second?
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'm sorry, who made the first?
Yeah, who made the first? There was no first, or Chris Granchi made the first. We have,
I'll make the second.
okay, Mr. Barria.
Sorry.
That's all right. I thought I heard something I didn't hear, I guess.
Sirocco?
Yeah.
Bariak?
Yes.
Fletcher?
Yes.
Franchi?
Yes.
Stemper?
Abstain.
Okay, all the minutes approved. There's no public hearings. And under unfinished business, number 1 is ordinance 2021-22.
That's January.
That's January. The only one under new old business is number 2.
Okay, you're right.
2021-28, amended ordinance amending to require the approval of council for contract expenditures over 25,000.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I have a quick question. Curious, is there a policy, are we going to get some kind of policy or procedures for dealing with, I mean, Mr. Novotny has on here, to get approved for the drive unit. If something like that comes up and we need an emergency situation, is there some kind of policy or like what is that going to look like if we need something now to get it approved by council and all that?
What do you, oh, okay, if we have something that's an emergency that goes on.
Right, you know, one of the departments needs to order something or get something now and not wait until it's approved by council and all that. What does that look like? Are there?
I mean, we would go to the, I don't have my opinion of what it would be, but I'd rather go to the law director.
First off, I apologize because I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you. And
Yes.
so if you could speak more directly into the mic, that would help. I think what you asked is whether or how you handle an emergency where somebody has to buy something and you don't have a council meeting for a while. There's such a thing called a now for then. The auditor, the bean counter folks call it now for then. There's a legal term for it as well. And it's a resolution that you make now that authorizes what happened before. So you can make what's called a now for then resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And I didn't mean any disrespect. My stepson's a CPA, so I didn't mean any respect by the term bean counter, just so everybody knows that. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, if not, if Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Daria,
Yes.
Blitzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Shepherd,
Yes.
Sirocco.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passes. And the rest of these are all tabled until January, correct? Okay, under new business, number one is ordinance 2021-32.
An ordinance approving a contract for interim law director.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Grant, you have the floor.
Mr. Schrader, do you have an estimate on how much time you spend on average on our city as far as an hourly rate goes?
I don't. I know that it's been a lot because, like John Bariak said one time, it's like peeling the onion. Every time you think you got an emergency handled, another one seems to crop up. So I've been working Saturdays and Sundays too, just to make sure we're caught up. And in fact, I had so many tapes that my secretary, we actually had to get another secretary in to help type everything up, which is why you got like 4 or 5 different letters from me just today. This is stuff I did last weekend. So I wish I could answer that. I don't know. What I can tell you is the advantage of not having me as an employee. You don't pay PERS. You don't have those expenses. You don't have any health insurance expenses. And we can kind of watch, hopefully, the hours we have to spend. Some stuff I can't control. If a court, like just this week, one lady threatened a taxpayer's lawsuit. And I had to tell her, no, I'm not going to file a taxpayer's lawsuit. So if she decides to sue you, that's going to cost, that's going to require some time. We got a couple other potential lawsuits that may or may not happen. If they don't happen, then you don't have that expense. But some things we can control. You need to rewrite pretty much all your ordinances, by the way. A lot of them are way outdated, and some of them just simply make no sense. But we're going to probably have to defer that to 2023 because the more important thing is to amend that charter of yours because it makes even less sense in a lot of ways. The elected officials ought to largely run things, and the way your charter is designed, there's a lot you cannot do. Because for some reason, when it was written to favor the appointed officials. And what we want to do is try to balance that out. So that's the one thing I really think you have to do next year. If the budget will allow it, we'll start looking at some of those ordinances. You got one that makes absolutely no sense, by the way, because that came up today. As you know, our law directors or prosecutors, assistant prosecutors, have tried to reduce the cost of your police budget, which is also way over budget, by not having the policeman show up every time there's a pretrial. We only call them in as a witness if we need them, because that's at least 2 hours of overtime. So we've saved you some money on that. So they only get paid if they are subpoenaed. Every other village I know of in the state, if you are on sick leave, you don't get to use your sick leave to count as the base 40 hours in order to get overtime. You got an ordinance that says that's okay. And I had put a hold on paying one of your policemen for that because of that situation. Then we noticed this ordinance that said you got to pay them. And if the ordinance says you got to pay them, you got to pay them. But that's something you ought to take a look at because that makes absolutely no sense. So I hope that's a long answer to a short question. I'm sorry. But between Sean and your city manager and the mayor and the head of council, I think we can sort of decide what's important and what can wait. And that can help reduce those costs. Thank you.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Granchi?
Yes.
Okay, does anybody else have anything on this? Mr. Boria?
Another note on this, just to let the public know. We've all been told, and it's not like, we would inundate Mr. Schrader's law firm. We were all told to try to stick to letting the city manager and the law director work things out and, not be, trying to, how would you say that, Mr. Schrader? Not be inundating you or calling you or anything like that. Try to get you were here, but I don't know how to say that. You know what?
No,
You're trying to save us some money.
yeah. For example, I don't return calls from citizens. I will
That's
suggest
what I
my
mean.
secretary have somebody call their elected officials or the city manager on issues that really a lot of times are policy, not legal. So that's one way to resolve it. The other is, we're gonna make a list of city employees that can call the law director directly. Otherwise, well, I'm gonna ask that they go through the city manager.
Right.
And city council can work out how you wanna handle it. If you wanna let all the city council members call, that's great. If you don't, you can have it go through the president of council or the mayor, however you wanna work it out. But, no disrespect to the citizens, but you know, if I answered every call from every citizen, you'd have a horribly large bill. And what I have done though is if an official asks for an opinion letter and somebody from the commission, planning and zoning did, actually two, I wrote two letters to the gentleman. So that I have been doing. So that's the kind of thing we'll work with.
What, I want an understanding though. A citizen can call the city manager and the city manager can relay it to you though, right?
Correct.
So there's nobody getting boxed out. In other words, from getting, an opinion.
Right. Well, like the one I had to write today, that a lady wanted me to file a taxpayer suit because you didn't sell those transmission lines. So I had to point out to her that the thing that was on the ballot just approved selling them. It didn't demand you sell them. And therefore, no, I'm not going to file a taxpayer suit. I have to do that by law if somebody requests that kind of thing. Then she had a whole bunch of other policy questions about whether it's a good idea to sell those things or not. And those I had to suggest to her, she talked to her elected officials about. So that's how we try to handle it.
Our own electric superintendent begged us not to sell them, and he had to know more than anybody here at the last meeting or so. Our own Mr. George said, I'm glad you didn't sell them.
Does anybody else want to first address on this?
I do. The mic up here again. I just have a couple questions for transparency because lots of things have been said. I received 3 or 4 calls just in the week since I've been seated here. So I'm curious, and I had constituents ask if we went out. You said you've been here since mid-October. Did we research? Did we go out and look for firms? How did we find Al?
I don't think that's the question directed towards me.
Al was recommended to us, and yes, we have been looking for other firms. Al knows this, because if it is too costly, then we do have to go a different route. And Al was agreeable to put in his contract that we could get out of it within 30 days if need be. So yes, we have been looking.
Was he recommended to us by anyone here on council, or anybody had any contact with him previous?
No.
No
It
one,
was Al.
no one's used his firm?
Well, Tessa had mentioned him, but I knew someone else, an attorney friend, that recommended.
Al, can you share, we had conversations of your expertise and different that you had with different townships and that, if you could kind of put that out on the floor, your background for township and.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you weren't here when I first addressed council. I spent 29 and a half years in elected public office without ever getting indicted. Some people find that funny, but I guess it didn't work here. 28 as a township trustee and a year and a half on Summit County Council. Since I represented a number of townships and villages and cities and counties, water districts, fire districts, joint economic development districts, lots of local governments around the state for the last 44 years. So I've got a pretty substantial background in local government law. In my law firm, I chair the local government section of our law firm, where we have about 5 attorneys that do an awful lot of local government law as well. And so I do have some pretty substantial background on all of that. I'm also admitted not only to all Ohio courts, I'm a member of the bar of the Ohio U.S. Supreme Court. I've filed briefs down there, but never had the good fortune to be able to argue a case in Washington. I have argued repeatedly in the Ohio Supreme Court, and I've argued a case in the 6th Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, which is one step below the U.S. Supreme Court. So I do have a pretty extensive background in representing local governments. I also represented a school district one time on a jet issue, but I generally concentrate on this kind of local government.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have anything on this?
I would like to clarify issues for Mrs. Stimpert.
Okay, you have the floor.
When I won the election in 2020, I picked up my certificate from the Board of Elections on November 18th and was sworn in on November 18th. And on November 20th, Lyle Waddell filed the lawsuit against me for winning the election, saying that the election shouldn't have taken place. I had a couple friends that were attorneys and explained to them what was going on, and Al was recommended to me. And Mr. Schrader represented me during that initial lawsuit that Lyle filed against me for winning the election. And then when that didn't go his way, Lyle turned around and filed a election commission complaint against me, and Mr. Schrader continued to represent me throughout that case. Now, since Mr. Schrader has come on board for the city of Newton Falls, we have signed off as, he is no longer my attorney. I am no longer his client. So we no longer have any affiliation as attorney-client. Those cases are over and done with. And what was that thing you had me sign? The waiver of?
Yeah, there's both Tessa and Pam signed a waiver of the appearance of a conflict. Some people were saying, hey, you represented the councilwoman, you shouldn't represent the village. Now, essentially what we've all agreed on is, A, I don't represent Tessa any longer. I hadn't for a month or 2 or 3, I forget how long. By the time the Pam had called me to potentially work for the village, I made clear, and probably ought to give this speech again, I don't represent individuals. I represent the village. That's a tough concept for a lot of people, but I don't. I represent the village, not individuals. So I don't represent individual council members. I'll defend you for anything you do in your public capacity, but I don't represent individuals. And so it's a kind of interesting position to be in because I actually represent the government. That's why sometimes I tell you, you can't do things you'd like to do because the charter maybe doesn't allow it. And that's never a comfortable thing either. So unless you intend to go back to suing people that get elected, I don't think we're going to have any conflicts here. And when I did ask for the files from that private law firm that had represented the village in so many issues, I isolated those 2 files, didn't look at them, and in fact, I'm sending them back to them to tell them to hold on to them unless the city manager asks for them, because I don't think I should even look at those. We won the cases, it doesn't matter anymore, but I don't want to get, I don't have any knowledge because of those representations, it's going to hurt this village. So that's what those are about.
Thank you for clarification.
Okay, is there any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, may I have a second? Oh,
Yeah, let me make
Mike.
sure that Mr. Sirotko doesn't want to first address. Good. Okay, then you have the floor, Mr. Granichi.
Al, I had one of my constituents ask about the separation of prosecutor and law director under the charter. I'm looking at the charter now. I don't see anything that says explicitly that it has to be one person, but I'd like to know what your legal opinion is on that.
No, it doesn't have to be one person. In fact, the salaried law director was permitted to hire somebody else if he felt like it. I don't want to editorialize. It looked to me like your prior law director handled the prosecutions and not much else. Frankly, when I looked at his resume, when he was hired, he didn't have any experience in local government law. I'm not sure he got much more during the course of the 10 years that he represented you, to be quite frank, because, well, I'm not going to criticize. So what I guess I'm saying is I think that the idea was to try to save you money. So my prosecutors can work for you for the 145 an hour. I can't. I'm giving you a hell of a break there. I normally charge 250 to 300 an hour. So I can't, it's more efficient and less expensive to use the younger prosecutor. And that's what they do. I think they've done a great job, by the way. They worked their way through a lot of cases. They seem to getting along very well with the judge. They've made some efficiencies by way of organizing the cases. A lot of times in the past, this community, for whatever reason, decided to deal away felonies. Felonies are prosecuted in the common police court. A lot of times in the past, there were plea deals, so the felony gets dropped and the matter gets handled in the Muni court. We don't do that anymore. A felony's a felony. That's something that's real serious and ought to be handled by the county prosecutor's office. So we've stopped that. That has meant we have a few more pretrials that we wind up doing. But we think over time, once the defense attorneys realize we're here for a while, they'll stop that as well. So I'm sorry, that's a long answer to that one too, but I hope it answers your question.
Right. So in summary, then it does not matter if it's one person or one firm. It doesn't explicitly say that. So in your legal opinion, this is righteous to do.
Yeah, the charter doesn't require it to be one individual. It could be two individuals. It doesn't require it be a salaried employee. It doesn't require any of those things. And again, I think I don't like the idea of being in a position where somehow the county's paying me or our law firm directly to handle your prosecutions. I think that money needs to come to you and then you allocate it to the law department. And that's what we're trying to establish here now. Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'm going to throw a bit of caution out here as we move forward. We have a whole lot of legislation, and at the pace, it is one thing to discuss and to get answers and everything, but at the pace we're going, we're not going to get out of here till 10:30, 11 o'clock, and that's with executive session. So I think we need to be very careful. And
Thank you.
okay, is there any other discussion on this? Okay. If not, if Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Schimpert. Yes. Baraco.
Yeah.
Bariak.
Yes,
Okay, ordinance passes. Okay, number 2 is ordinance 2021-33, whenever Mrs. King is ready to read.
An ordinance advancing the sum of $116,000 from the general fund 100 to the permissive auto fund 203 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Yes, not to go back over the old ground, but this is the, when we voted down not to go with the county road department for one reason was the money wasn't budgeted, but about 40,000. We also, the guy did the work. They came in a week later, they did the work anyhow. They weren't stopped. So we've got to pay them. This is the money. Oh, this is the money, what is it, half of the money, Mr. Housley?
Yes.
It's a little bit more,
About.
yes, sir. About half the money. We've worked it out with them where they'll take payments. Now, I want the people to understand too, that, the First Street, that was a loan. We're paying that back. What is our payment on that, Mrs. Purdy? Do you know what our payment is on the First Street? 200,000, 197? Are you familiar with that?
I would have to look that up.
Yeah, but that was not budgeted either. That wasn't a grant, that was a no interest loan. So we're paying back First Street. We have a lot of debt we have to pay back, is what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I would like to address.
Okay, you have the floor, Ms. Blitzer.
I just want the public to know that in the piece of legislation that was presented to us, this is the way that money should be transferred. We have separate funds. Money coming from one fund goes to another fund. And this piece of legislation guarantees that the fund that is being it's sent to will be paid back. No, it will be paid back in full, no later than 2023. So this money is being sent to the general fund to pay for the paving. And then the general fund is going to pay back these funds that are contributing this money by the end of 2023. So there is a repayment plan in process for this money to be moved.
Anybody else?
I'd like to say one more. We know where the money now, it's not a shell game. We know where the money came from and where the money's gonna go back. Thank you.
Do we have anything else before we go ahead and call for the roll? Whenever you're ready.
Yes.
Stimpert,
Yes.
Sirocco,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Fletcher.
Yes.
The ordinance passes.
We have to read it again. We have to read it again by the emergency.
Okay, that's right.
An ordinance advancing the sum of $116,000 from the general fund 100 to the permissive auto fund 203 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay, if Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Stimpert,
Yes.
Sirocco,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Fletcher,
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
It passes. Okay, number 3 is ordinance 2021-34. Whenever Mrs. King is ready to read this ordinance.
An ordinance advancing the sum of $52,000 from the sewer reserve fund 520 to the sewer fund 502 to provide the resources for repairs to the water clarifier unit and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
This is I may have the floor, Mayor.
Yes, you have the floor.
I'm going by what Mr. Novotny said. This is an unexpected thing. Things wear out. I think you said 14 years old. Did you say that, Mr. Novotny? It's not they have a scheduled maintenance. It just blew up. And, we have to go to the reserve fund to get this money because is there a 6-month wait time on this that I read, sir? Mr. Novotny, there's a 6-month turnaround on this. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay, does anybody else have anything on?
I would like to address.
Okay, Ms. Blitzer, you have the floor.
And this is one of those cases where we did have something that broke down and it does need to be replaced and it does cost over $25,000. But this is the way it's done properly. We have a sewer reserve fund, which is separate from the actual operating fund of the sewer plant. So this piece of legislation is saying that it's okay to move $52,000 from the sewer reserve into the regular sewer fund. And it also guarantees that the sewer reserve fund will be paid back by the end of 2023 as well.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, if not, if Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Sirocco,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Fletcher,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stimpert.
Yes.
Okay, pass. We need a second reading again on this with it being an emergency, so we have that,
So
motion.
moved.
Okay, Ms. Blitzer.
Second.
Okay. Whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll on this.
Bariak,
Yes.
Fletcher,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stimpert,
Yes.
Sirocco.
Yes.
Passes. All right, number 4 is ordinance 2021-35, and whenever Mrs. King is ready to read.
An ordinance transferring the sum of $65,000 from the general fund to the street CMR Fund 201 totaling $40,000 and capital improvements fund 400 totaling $25,000 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we
So
have a
moved.
motion, Ms. Bledsoe? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Bariak, any discussion?
I would like an address.
Okay,
This is the second half of being able to pay off the paving that happened this summer. And again, this is the way it's properly done. We're moving money from different accounts into other accounts. And this is the proper way that it should be done. One of the things that I did want to point out to my fellow council members is that under section 1, both of those items should say 2. We are moving from the general fund, the total of $65,000, and then we're putting 40,000 of that into the CMR fund, and the other 25,000 is going into the capital improvement fund. So in section 1, both of those should say 2, and that's all.
okay, anybody else? Any other discussion? If not, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stemper,
Yes.
Sirocco,
Yeah.
Bariak.
Yes.
Okay, it passes, and we need a second reading for this. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stemper,
Yes.
Sirocco,
Yeah.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passes. Number 5 is ordinance 2021-36. Whenever Mrs. King is ready to read.
An ordinance making appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Newton Falls, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and authorizing the finance director to amend and file the certificate of resources to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, we do this every year.
Okay, anybody else?
I would just like to clarify for the public that this is what is going to wrap up 2021 for us. Mr. Housley already knows what to expect as far as payments that'll carry us to the end of the year. And making these appropriations is what he needs us to do in order to be able to close out 2021 and be done with it on December 31st.
And we're close enough that we don't want to come in here on New Year's Eve.
Anybody else? No. Okay, if no other discussion, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Stemper,
Yes.
Sirocco,
Yeah.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
Okay, we need a second on that. So if anybody wants to make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Sirocco,
Yeah.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stemper.
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay. Number 6 is ordinance 2021-37. Whenever Mrs. King is ready to read.
An ordinance making appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Newton Falls, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022, and authorizing the finance director to amend and file a certificate of resources to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to make one comment. I'm sorry. May I have permission?
Yes, you have the floor.
This is what is going to establish for us for establish the budget for 2022. And what Mr. Housley has provided us in all these worksheets and everything shows us what appropriations have been made to the various accounts. This is what is setting up our budget for next year. That's all.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stemper,
Yes.
Sirocco.
Yeah.
Okay, passes. We need a second for that. So if somebody wants to make a motion.
So moved.
Okay, did you second that? Mr. Sirocco seconded. Okay, so whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll on that.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stemper,
Yes.
Sirocco,
Yeah.
Bariak.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passes. Okay, number 7 is resolution 39-20-21. Whenever Mrs. King is ready to read.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into and execute various contracts with Pan American for employee health care benefit needs.
Okay, do we
So
have,
moved.
Ms. Spitzer, do we have a second?
Second,
And Mr. Boriak, any discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Franchi.
This is very similar to the new plan, is very similar to what I have at work. I know that copays for us don't hit until after we've hit the deductible, but they are given, we are given discounts when I look at the explanation of benefits. So are discounts given before there is a copay like they do with mine? Is that a thing for this?
Yes, as was discussed with the employees, the network, and we've provided some listings to them, but the search is better because we don't know who all their providers are, but the network is Cigna. Cigna is the network. Mayor, if I could have just a second, I would like to talk a minute about affiliations. And I don't think a lot of people realize affiliations and what they mean. I've been in the insurance industry for 42 years. I am still a licensed insurance agent, which means I have an affiliation with Medical Mutual. I have an affiliation with Anthem. I have an affiliation with United Healthcare. I have an affiliation with a number of different administrators. So yes, I do have affiliations. I have affiliations with stop loss carriers, Can American, Companion. I know all of those companies. So that's the extent of an affiliation. As an insurance agent, you have those affiliations.
But let's clarify. You don't get any money out of entering into this
No.
contract, right?
No,
And that person that used to be a friend, allegedly, according to Facebook or whatever, the internet, that's not somebody that lives with you. You benefit anyway.
no.
Okay, I just want to make those things clear. I know we're not allowed to respond when people are talking, and I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I think it's important to note because the implication was somehow that Pam had some interest in this, and she just told you she doesn't.
No, I don't.
And affiliation just means that you know the company you worked with before in your role with the insurance.
I've worked with every one of them, yes.
Okay. Sorry to cross the family.
Mr. Grinch, do you have anything else in your first address?
No, not my first.
Okay, would anybody else like an address here?
I would like to say one thing. I'm not gonna say anything that the supervisors didn't know. They were told when we were there that day, that we will try to get together this coming year and have the cooperation like we had when we got away from that consortium, when Mr. Savage and that deal, and got the people. And we're gonna try our best. What was August? Did we agree on August? August to put everybody together. And if there's any way we can squeeze more, we want the employees and everybody to know we're between a rock and a hard place. It's nothing personal. When I came on council, and I hate to get talking about I ran on two things. The employees hadn't had a raise for 7 years. And I got the net and I said I'd get them some decent insurance. And, I hope I'm trying to keep my promise. I appreciate the employees.
There is one is covered by the health, and there is called an HRA on top of it. So they're two separate plans. As of this evening, I did speak with Mr. Well, I'm still willing to work on the benefit side. The insurance side is what we have to look in to make sure that they have coverage again, getting what it wants. But the benefit side of it, we can still speak a little bit here and there to help. So I told him I was still willing.
Nice.
I would like to address too.
You have the floor, Ms. Spitzer.
I believe before we left the meeting on Monday, we were told that the employees were going to have a meeting with the insurance carrier on the 28th of December. And the employees will have benefit cards before January 1, and you will be able to meet with the insurance people on December 28th and ask all the questions you'd like to ask them.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Butler?
That's all.
Okay, Mr. Sirotko or Ms. Stemper, do you want to first address them?
I do. Do you? You're good. Okay. Transparency, I appreciate you clarifying the affiliation and being, having those connections and whatnot. Couple things. Were you ever in charge of or managing Pan America before it was incorporated?
No. They are boards to review,
So you were never manager of Pan, never?
Just make sure that everybody here tonight, you're sliding your microphones towards your faces, because I can see a lot of individuals kind of.
Short of eating it, I don't know what.
Okay, does anybody want a second address? If Mr. Sirotko doesn't want it first, they want a second.
Yes, please.
Okay, you have the floor, Mr. Granchi.
Pam, is this a plan that, are we married to this any longer than the end of this year if we are not satisfied with the coverage, with the claims, with anything like that? Okay.
Okay, Mr. Borek, you have the floor.
I want to just read something. I know the supervisors were aware of it. This is from the city of Girard. Dear council members, health insurance plan. The city of Girard has been with the same health plan for more than 10 years. We have been very satisfied with the health plan and the claims administrator. We have been able to maintain our costs through the years, and our plan administrator, which provides us with reporting on the plan. I believe the city of Newton Falls will be happy with the service and the administrative functions of WJL Administrative Services LLC. If you have any questions, please contact me. This is our safety service director. Then we have one of our own companies, very credible company in Newton Falls. I'm not going to go into reading the whole thing, but Quality Switch has it, and they agree that they would not have, in other words, they don't have any problem. We're trying to get through this. These are public documents. You can ask for them. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Fletcher, Ms. Stempert, Mr. Sirotko, would you like an address? Okay, I just got one question here, one thought. I wrote myself some notes. I'm obviously not an insurance person or anything, but with just looking at it on the surface, it's something I was curious about. I know different individuals obviously don't like the deductible, and some individuals that said, talked about if they had an option where they had out of pocket something out of their paycheck and it's not there. Is there any way that, first off, you could have, or somebody could open up your own account, and if you took $50 a pay, $100 a month out, that's $1,200 a year, or $75 a pay, $150 a month, it comes to $1,800, to where you personally do that. Or is there any way that can be paid towards the insurance company and have their deductible lowered, or no? Hmm. Hmm.
money, which means the money, if they were it's big part. So if they set aside $50,
Hmm.
it might only make that might only go down $30.
Because I did hear different individuals that mentioned that they wish that there was a way that they wouldn't mind if they were contributing some, if it was like you said, 30, 40, 50, that comes up and then it lowers the amount where you don't have the large deductible. Just
And can I have my two addresses?
yeah. Right. Anybody else have
One
anything?
final,
Miss,
no affiliation, no connection with WJL.
No,
None.
no.
okay.
Thank you.
Um,
The deal with the, was to explain that if we take the money out, work it back, it'll be a nightmare. So this is the best one.
Mrs. King, if you want to call for the roll.
Franchi,
Yes.
Seifert,
Yes.
Bronco.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm abstaining. I'm so sorry.
Okay, Seifert, abstain. Bronco.
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes,
Fletcher.
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. Okay. Number 8, resolution 40-2021. Whenever Mrs. King is ready to read.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for purchase and installation of a W24P drive unit replacement for 50-foot diameter BSV-D clarifier for the wastewater treatment plant.
So moved.
second,
Okay, any discussion? Okay, if no discussion on once, on twice, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Seifert,
Yes.
Bronco.
Yes.
Bariak,
yes,
Fletcher,
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. Okay. Number 9, resolution 41-2021.
Resolution approving the contract for the interim law director.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, with the terminology there, if you're approving the contract, is there an explanation on that? Is the interim because it's a continuous, is that to pay back pay? Is that, I'm not understanding why it's.
Contract. So that's, so we can not bill for the last quarter of 2022 or 2021 in 2022. That'll goof up the budget next
Okay.
year. So that was if you want to make it more clear, that's fine with
Okay,
me.
no, that's all right. I was just clarifying for myself.
Mayor,
Yeah.
may I have an address? on
Sure.
this? And I just would like to disclose that, I have not seen an estimated cost, and therefore I can't guarantee that there's enough money appropriated to pay a bill I might get prior to the end of this year.
Mhm. Okay.
Well, let me know what's there. I mean, that might help. I mean, so far what I know is that it looks like before we ever got here, that was way over budget. So I don't know what's still there, if anything. So
God bless you.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Bronco.
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes,
Fletcher,
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
Seifert.
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. Number 10 is resolution 42-2021.
Resolution requesting Brian Axiotis to resign from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Granchi, you have the floor.
I had had a decent working relationship going into being a council member with Mr. Axiotis. Since then, he's betrayed my trust with just the Devil Strip situation. He told me all signs would need to go after the November meeting that were in the Devil Strip. Then he told residents at the zoning meeting that that wasn't going to happen. So either he lied to me or he was lying to the residents. Furthermore, the rules of zoning prohibits retroactive action being taken. He publicly stated that no other variances would be granted, which is showing favoritism. He lied about comments that were made on Facebook that I saw them myself. We've received many written and even more verbal complaints about unprofessional conduct. So I'm very disappointed with the way everything has gone with him.
Okay. Yeah, anything else, Mr. Granchi?
No.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Barr, if you'd like to first.
This, when, all I want to say tonight, and I don't know if I don't get it right, when we take an oath up here, whether we like somebody or don't like anybody, that is not to be part of the equation. Everybody is to be given respect, no foul language, not called names. Look, that's what you're here for, you are a representative of this city. Your conduct reflects on all the citizens, and we can't have that.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a question. I am aware of the two written complaints that we were sent. Were there additional complaints this week? I believe we received two. Two. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert,
Yes.
Baraco,
Yes. Okay, resolution passes. Okay, number 11 is resolution 43-2021.
a resolution authorizing the finance director to change the name of specific city funds.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and then Mr. Housley, can you just give us a brief synopsis of what this means?
Sure, they just make more sense, honestly. And I just want to read through these just real quickly so the public hears.
Yeah, just speak into the mic real well.
So I'm renaming the water revenue to water operating because that's what it is, encompasses the complete operations of the water fund. And the same principles are behind these other changes. Sewer revenue to sewer operating, electric revenue to electric operating, stormwater utility to stormwater operating. I've got a sewer debt. It was really sewer debt service. Electric debt is electric debt service. I've got OWDA water plant loan. That's a water debt service fund. And a WWTP debt reserve. That's a sewer debt reserve fund. So they're just more understandable the way I rewrote them.
Okay,
And I hope you all agree.
thank you. Anybody have any questions or on that? It's pretty self-explanatory. He covered it pretty well. So whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert,
Yes.
Baraco,
Yes.
Bariak.
Yes.
The resolution passes. Number 12 is a motion to establish council committees through December 31st, 2022. That was sponsored by Ms. Spletzer. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Spletzer, do you have any type of a handout on that?
You should have received one in your packet.
Okay, I think I do have.
I'd like to make a motion to take that as a blanket instead of.
Yeah, why don't we do this? If we'll, if somebody wants to make a motion to waive the rules to regular council and go off of Ms. Bletzer's stuff that we have here so that we can discuss if somebody has basically a wish list or something like that. So Mr. Srotko, okay, so council rules are waived and we'll try to find the paper here. I don't see.
You need to take roll.
That's right.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert,
Yes.
Baraco,
Yeah.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer.
Yes.
Okay, regular council rules are waived. Ms. Spletzer, was that on the back of the agenda? Trying to see where mine.
Yeah, it's toward the end of
It
everything.
is towards the end.
Oh,
It's the third to last name.
I gave it to.
okay. I got one. Thank you.
All right, I would just like to make the statement that I did talk to a couple of the council members and asked them if they had any preferences before I put the list together. So this is how it came out. And in fact, I think I actually typed this in and just returned it to the clerk. So if anyone sees any changes that needs to be made, then.
Mr. Bariak? Mr. Bariak? On this, it has me as the primary for economic development, and I know those pop up a lot faster for some things, so I wanted to know if you wanted to take primary on that one, and then I would just take primary.
I didn't, I'm sorry, I have to ask the lawyer. I didn't think I was, we're both on it together.
Oh, I thought there was a primary.
No,
and
no.
secondary. Okay.
No, you have just as equal much as me, sir.
Okay.
do this for you.
Now, that was something I noticed when I was putting the list together. The 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 at the top definitely have a single person and then an alternate as a backup.
Yeah.
And then the 1, 2, 3 in the middle, it requires 2 council people to be on finance and administration, utility public works, and public safety. So those 2 definitely require 2. And then the ones down at the bottom, again, it looks like Mrs. Stimpert is a backup if Mr. Klein doesn't want to go to or can't go to the East Gate. And then I would be the backup to the tax review board. And I would also be a backup for Mrs. Stimpert on local board of tax review. So those ones name alternates, but the way I read it, economic development is it's an equal team effort.
Mhm.
Did you, are we waiving the reading of what's proposed?
So what we are right now is we're regular council rules are waived. So I was going to say, look down through, and if nobody has a problem with something, if you're good with it, we'll go back into regular council rules and we'll pass it as a whole.
Can I address real quick? Well, not address,
Go
we're just
ahead.
talking. I went through and was looking and like, Chris has 3 that he sits on. I have 3. Fletcher has 3. Bariak has 2. Sirocco only has.
How many do I have?
You have 2. Your alternates, like 2 that you're the main.
I'm on
but
4 though. I have,
because you have economic development too, you're right. Would we be able to consider maybe putting Mr. Sirocco on civil service with Granchi, since Bariak's already on the 4?
It's not a bad idea since Mr. Sirocco is a former police officer.
I could do that.
Civil service. It says that Bariak is on civil service and then Granchi is the backup.
Right, they asked because Mike only has 1. He said he would take civil service with me because I come from a long line of cops and he is a former police officer. That would probably, if you're okay with that, Mr. Bariak.
Yeah, I'm good.
does Mike want to serve on it? Do you want to serve on it, Mike?
On the civil service?
Yeah, he said
Yeah, I could do that.
with his background.
It balances out the numbers a little bit.
Who's the alternate? I don't have my sheet.
I'm the alternate.
Oh, you don't have one? Yeah, it's yourself and Granchi, and he was wanting to replace yourself on that, so he has an extra committee.
If Mike wants to do it, that's fine.
Okay.
You good?
All right. So, Miss Kane, do you have a list in front of you that we could put Mr. Sirocco there? Okay. And is everybody okay with everything else? Do you want to take a look at it?
The rest of it's good.
If everybody's good, we'll end up making a motion second. We'll come out, go back into regular council, and then we'll end up needing to make a motion to pass it.
Okay, one question. Would I be alternate on civil service?
You would be the primary.
I'd be primary.
Or I mean, we could split it between, I mean, you're usually at work when I'm at home and I'm at home when you're at work, so.
Okay, well,
We
long
said the same
work
thing
it out.
twice.
Not for something like that, you guys can just communicate it. I mean, if you are the main one, or you can let him know, hey, I can't make this, I'm gonna be working later or whatever, so.
With my work schedule, I don't mind the Utility Appeals Board. Mr. Granchi gets off at midnight. If he wants to go to sleep, I'll be I don't have any problem being the primary on that. Let's see. Public safety, Mr. Granchi and I are on that. Where else am I? Where else? I'm
Utilities appeal.
Yeah, I'm on that too, but I'm on economic. I don't mind. Look, if it's a little extra, if somebody says I'm here to serve, and I have been on a lot of these committees before in the last 5.5 years, except the ones that finance, they wouldn't let me on that, or economic development. They always voted me down. I have no problem.
Okay, well, I'm just glad that they do have a council here that you guys can sit down like adults here and you guys can look at it. You have a paper as a starting point and you work together on it. I appreciate that.
I'd like to thank Mrs. Spletzer for calling and getting that all organized and giving everybody the option to have a conversation about it.
Mrs. Stempert, are you happy?
I am.
Well, I mean, no,
It's fine. Yes.
we want to all work together. Thank you.
Spletzer,
You're new. We don't want to sludge you.
thank you. I'm good.
Thank you.
If everybody's good on that, if somebody wants to make a motion.
Motion to
move that-
reinstate rules.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Ms. King, if you could call for the roll.
Stempert,
Yes.
Sirocco,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
Okay, and do we have a motion to pass the entire exhibit as one piece instead of going item?
So moved.
by item?
The entire thing as amended with Sirotco on, civil service.
Okay, that's good.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, for a second. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, if not, Mrs. King, whatever you want to call for the roll.
Sirocco,
Yeah.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, and number 13 is a motion to appoint the vice president of council for 2022.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Bariak as Vice President of Council for 2022.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Does it have to be someone different from the year before, or can we
No.
move? Okay.
No, and you know what, and I believe that Mr. Bariak was filled the remainder on this past one anyway,
Okay.
so. Okay,
I wasn't sure if there was supposed to be a rolling.
I think I was only on a month and a half, wasn't I?
Yeah.
do we have a second?
We did.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, if not, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Bariak,
All abstain.
Okay,
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert,
Yes.
Sirocco.
Yes.
okay, motion passes to have Mr. Bariak as the vice president for 2022. Okay. Number 14 is a motion to accept the city manager's recommendation for the smart meters. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, please. I'd like to address first.
Okay, you have the floor.
I believe Mr. Lawanawansu is correct. I think back in October when I don't know what the word I want to, we approved the opt-out, cost analysis. We approved the cost analysis. And we did not get to the point where we approved the rest of the city manager's recommendations for that. So I believe he is correct. We have not established an ordinance for the opt-outs. So I'm going to say that, perhaps we need to pass this as a motion, and then the law director can work it into an ordinance for us for the next meeting.
Either that or you just yank this off the table and just have the ordinance.
Well, we keep running it around. What is your opinion, sir? Excuse me, may I have the floor? What is your opinion, sir? Would it be what Mrs. Spletcher said, we should go as a motion now and pass it? And then you make an ordinance and come back? Would it speed things up any or do anything? I can't see.
The only way to speed it up is we can draft it as an emergency ordinance. And then usually Kathy King writes a number of these things. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I would rather not do it as an emergency. I mean, I realize that we want to be quick, but I would rather, so the options either to pass this motion tonight and then have a regular ordinance, and it's going to have to be a little bit of time, or we pull this and just have a regular ordinance and just take the time. I don't like to criticize somebody else for moving like their hair's on fire and not properly discussing something and me doing the same thing. But
Is this just to say that we approve what the city manager recommends?
yeah, and then we'll turn around and we can put it in ordinance.
Well,
I would like a second address. I would like to thank Mr. George for calling and thanking me for putting this on the agenda. I know the electric department is ready to just wrap this up and move forward with the project. The water department is moving forward with the water meters. I believe that process might be slowing down, but I think that us passing this, the recommendations goes along with what we had already passed, which was the cost analysis. Now we need to put those two pieces together and make it an ordinance. And then that can be tidied up at, by the end of January.
Okay, Mr. Granchi or, Ms. Stifler, Mr. Srotka, did you have anything on this? Okay, if not, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert,
Yes.
Saratko,
Yeah.
Bariak.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, number 15 is a motion to appoint the following beginning January 1st of 2022, Paul King to Planning and Zoning for a 5-year term and Laura Nizel to Park and Recreation for a 3-year term. Do we have a motion?
Second,
Okay, any discussion?
Mr. King has been on there for 11 years. He's done a very good job. I don't see any reason why, if he wants to be back on, I have no reason not to put him back on. He's very level-headed. And Laura Nyheisel is very, very competent about, she knows a lot of Robert's Rules of Order. She knows a lot of government. I have no problem with appointing her. That's my opinion.
Okay, would anybody else want to address there?
I would like to address. I can comment on Laura Nyheisel's participation at the Park and Recreation Board. She is an excellent secretary. She's been keeping notes and saving Mrs. King some time herself.
She does a good job. Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert,
Yes.
Saratko,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, and lastly, motion to authorize the electric department to remove the smart meter from the house located at 312 Ridge Road and pay the $205 cost for the replacement. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, I would like to address first so that I can clarify.
Do you have the floor?
Let me begin by stating that this is the one and only opt-out after the fact that is going to occur. The Kleins had someone trespass on their property and install meters on buildings that were not supposed to get meters. And secondly, it says here, and pay the $205 cost for the replacement. The Kleins are paying that amount. The Kleins are paying the $205 to opt out of their electric meter. And that's all. This one situation and one and only situation is the only exception to the meter program moving forward.
Okay, and just so, in case anybody doesn't know, it's not me. I mean, as the clients, I don't want anybody to think, well, was the mayor getting some kind of favor? It's not my family. Okay. Anybody else?
Yes.
You have the floor.
Just a quick one for the law director. We're not going to set any precedent by doing something like this, are we?
Given that Tesla just said that this is the one and only time you're going to do this, I don't think you're creating a precedent. This is more like a moral claim. What happened here was pretty much a disaster. I don't know how it happened, but somehow they put in a meter on a garage that shouldn't have had one on to begin with. The poor lady's refrigerator got fried. Pam had suggested she make a claim against whatever private companies putting these things on and came up with the meters. I understand they agreed to pay for the refrigerator. So this woman is been treated a lot different than anybody else in this community, in that she suffered quite a bit as a result. So her situation is very unique. The councilwoman already pointed out that that's the only time you're doing it. And I think that makes it a unique enough situation that you can grant a moral claim like that, and especially if the lady's paying the $205 herself, then
Mhm.
it's not costing the village anything there. So, in the unlikely event, I hope it's an unlikely event that this ever happens again with these people as they put these meters on places. It's a very, very isolated set of facts. So I don't think it sets a bad precedent.
Okay, thank you. Because I don't know that I've heard anybody else come out and say that they've had a meter put on to a facility that didn't already have one, such as a shed, or a garage, or anything like that. Mr. Barak, you want to?
That, you stole my thunder. From what I understand, there was not a meter on there and they just slapped one on. So if it didn't have a meter, or was there a meter on there, Bill? There was another one on there? I wasn't told, I don't know.
May I address?
Let me see first, if Mr. Granchi or Ms. Stemper would like to address.
I had reached out to Mrs. Spitzer to ask about this because I feared setting the precedence of anybody, getting upset or claiming their, fridge got fried, whatever. How do you do it for one and not for the other? How do you decide that this was a bad situation for one person and not another? I asked what Mr. George's take on this was, his support or his concern with it, and she hadn't spoken to him yet. So have you spoken to Mr. George in regards to this situation?
Not fully about this particular one. I've mentioned it.
Mayor, if I could have my understanding is in what, the Kleins wrote in their letter was that there was a meter on the garage, but it was not an active meter.
Okay. That and the refrigerator cost, the city's not paying that, correct? That's, yeah, if the installer agreed to do that.
I'd like to address on that. We received a check already, but we will be cutting the check to the resident.
Okay,
So we are being reimbursed.
all right, thank you. Mr. Granchi, did you?
I haven't had a first. No.
Okay. Yeah.
So I also am concerned about setting a dangerous precedence. Besides that, I can't even justify this as a function of council to even do. It seems like it should be between the resident and the electric department. I don't know why we would pass any kind of legislation or do anything in our capacity to get in the middle of that. This just doesn't feel right for me.
Is that all you have, Mr. Granchi?
Yeah.
Would anybody like a second address?
I would like a second.
Miss,
And I'm looking for it in the letter, but I can't remember if, I was told that the meter that was on the garage was booted, and I don't know what booted means. I think that means it's rendered inoperable. And when the company trespassed into her gated area and put the new meter on her garage, what they did was they reestablished electricity going to the garage, where in that case, there was a meter there, but there was no electricity going to it.
okay, anybody else?
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Barak,
If it was booted, why didn't they take the meter off? Why didn't they just take the meter off to begin with and leave it off? Why wasn't the meter taken off if it's not being used?
yeah, that's one of those things that wasn't a Mr. George thing. So, I mean, it's.
I'd like to waive council rules real quick, a motion, just so Mr. George could say something.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Stempert.
Yes.
Sirocco.
Yeah.
Bariak.
Yes.
Switzer.
Yes.
Franchi.
Yes.
Bill, do you want to say something? You got the right to right now. Go ahead. I can't hear you.
The only thing I can say is if the meter was booted, it's because it was turned off for one reason or another.
We don't pull meters when they're booted, because if the customer establishes service again, then we just come out and pull the boots off and then they have a service. So the meters stay on there, they could stay on there indefinitely until the service actually comes off the house. Now, as in the meter in the rear building that the electric was established on, I can't say if it's booted or not. I have pictures that show it was not, but I wasn't there to verify it, so I do not.
I have one question. Could it have been booted because they were afraid of burning the place down? And that's why you booted it? It wasn't safe to have a meter there?
That's not my call. That's a county inspection thing. The only way we boot meters is if we shut the service off.
Okay. Anybody else before we go back into a regular council?
I just will clarify with Mr. George that, the meter that is currently on the house is the smart meter.
Yes,
And what this is doing is giving you the authorization to go take the smart meter off of the house and put a new digital meter without the smart component.
that's the way it sounds to me, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. George, I keep hearing about the trespassing thing. Isn't there something with utilities where the trespassing doesn't apply if you're doing something with the utilities?
I don't know that would have to be looked up. I'm not sure. I know we always ask for permission when we got to go into gated areas and stuff, but I think we're still have to have right of way to the services. That's my understanding.
Is there any safety concern to leaving it the way it is and it's not it's not running, right? It's not working now. It's shut off.
Yeah, I actually pulled the meters from both of those buildings, so there is no service. We actually cut the wires at the road, so there is no electricity going to them. So they'll have to be re-inspected when they decide to get electric again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion to return back to council rules?
So moved.
We have a second. Sir.
Sirocco,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert.
Back in regular council rules.
Can I have a second address?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to ask, the reason why was she charged? See, I can't get to the bottom of this. Was she charged the $250 for the electric meter already? That's what I'm trying to get.
No.
She wasn't. So what your motion says that if she has the thing changed, she doesn't have to pay.
No, it says she is I just explained that. She is going to pay. She's going to pay the $205 to opt out of the electric.
All right, everybody keep it down. Yeah, it's not real clear on that. Motion to authorize electric department to remove the smart meter from the house located at 312 Ridge Road and pay the 205. Who's paying the 205? Is it her or is it the city?
The client.
Okay, see, when I read that, I thought that it meant that the electric department was paying the 205.
No.
Okay. I don't know, and I don't think we have to make a motion on it. If we could maybe have that clarified just a little bit clear.
You want to amend that a little bit so we
Just paid by homeowner or something, have that added to there or to the motion.
Can we say, the house located at 312 Ridge Road and have the resident pay the
Yes.
$105?
Yeah,
And the homeowner.
yes.
Owner?
Yep. Okay, do we need to make a motion on that or is that?
I want to make a motion to amend.
Okay, we
I'll
have a
second
second. Okay, whenever Mrs. King is ready for the roll.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Had the resident done the paperwork or opted out when this happened, like prior to this happening?
Well, you know what, this here is to amend, to have it worded where after we amend, then we can discuss a little more detail. So whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll to amend the motion.
Bariak,
Yes.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stempert,
Yes.
Sirocco.
Yes.
Okay, motion is amended. Now it's on the floor as amended. Do you have something on that, Miss, I gotta look for your name until I get it in my head.
Mrs. Stempert.
I was asking if she had already filed or did the application to opt out.
No.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, if there's no other discussion, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Switzer,
Yes.
Franchi,
No.
Stempert,
No.
Siratko,
Yeah.
Bariak,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay. Public comments, give your name, your address, you got 3 minutes, and it's open to non-agenda items also.
Brenda Persino, 226 Oak Knoll. I hope you take these remarks into consideration tonight before making a decision of any kind in your executive session, because I don't know what it's about or who it's about. Leadership is a privilege given to few individuals. We place our trust and hope that those in this role will use their authority to better those they lead and to the lives of their community. Think about what that word or those words, leadership, and to what those roles mean to you tonight. Chief Bixler has demonstrated this ideal of leader and leadership time and time again in service to our city of Newton Falls. And he has mentorship to future and current police officers. A true leader would never abuse their authority for personal vengeance or vendettas against a fellow community leader or others in a community. So I hope Chief Bixler's long outstanding career in the law enforcement as a law enforcement leader outshines any perceived ideas of breaches of trust that you may have already have lodged in your mind. He has continued to lead by example to fulfill his duties with honor and making sure to follow closely to his oath that he swore to, despite any pressures to break them. Thank you. That's all I got. It's amazing. It's short, isn't it?
Hey, anybody else?
Adam Zimmerman, 515 LeMay Avenue. I'm kind of going to jump around here, but I want to start where I was told to be quiet at the very beginning. Page 10 of the Ohio Ethics Law Overview. Conflicts of interest restrictions, use of authority, RC 102.03D, the use of position to secure benefit, RC 102.03D, the conflict of interest law prohibits a public official or employee from using or authorizing the use of his or her public position to get benefits for the official or employee or for anyone else with whom he or she is closely connected. EFF on Facebook, twice. Why?
You know what?
I'm allowed to speak against anything I
Mr.
want.
Zimmerman,
What exactly does that mean? Please speak.
why don't you stop, since it's my meeting and I'd like to talk to you for a second.
No, sir. I'm on my time. You can address me when I'm done.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you.
Stop.
I'm on the clock, sir.
Go sit down.
No, sir.
Go sit down.
No,
You're asking
sir.
about officer.
I am on the clock.
Get him out of here. Okay?
Anyone touches me, you will have a lawsuit, sir.
Get him out of here. Walk out. Walk out of my
No,
meeting.
sir.
Walk out of my meeting.
You will have to escort me out.
Get him out. Get him out of here.
No, sir.
Get him out of here.
No, sir.
Why?
So I'm going to tell you what. You have every right to talk on
Yes, sir.
non-agenda items.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you stop your talking for a minute? I'm addressing you. But
You're not allowed to
you
address
do
me,
not
sir.
have the right to make allegations on anybody up here. You know that from being on council. You're done. Go.
No, sir.
Get him out of here, chief.
Excuse me, sir. What is your authority to do that?
Disrupting a public meeting.
I'm reading from the law.
You're disrupting a public meeting, please.
You do not have the right to make unfounded suggestions of impropriety towards anybody up here. You know that. Anybody else?
Julie Lemon, 2750 East River Road. On behalf of Robert and Jamie Klein, they thank council for voting on the matter at hand. They're happy to put it to rest. So they thank you guys. And that's it. That's all I had. Just tell you everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Chelsea Harper, 128 West Corey, or West. That's right. Okay, it's fine. I'm gonna jump around a little bit too. Adam's not the only person to ever make an accusation, especially from this end or that end. So that's the first thing. The next thing, the fun part about law and the fun part about psychology is they go hand in hand. So when you talk circles, it ends up being BS no matter which way you spin it until you get to a final resolution. Okay, so as many circles as want to be talked up there, nothing actually happens. I'm not sure that I actually heard any actual legal argument up there tonight that made any sense. As many circles as you want to talk, people are going to listen. And that's the fun part, because the more you talk and the more circles you go in, the more people are going to believe it. Psych 101. So I appreciate your circles. Next. No? Sorry, I wrote it all on my hand again. I can't help it. As far as the insurance, I'd love to ask how much each of you make a week at your legal job and how much you pay in insurance a week at your job. And I would really love for you guys to submit it and tell everyone in this city exactly what you make and exactly what you pay, exactly what your family size is, and what you do for this city for a living. Okay? Because Matt, the awesome person that I'm supporting tonight, Matt is an absolutely amazing person. I see him in the store all the time. He is always around this city, and you know what? He doesn't have to be. He answers phone calls when he doesn't have to. Just like Bill George, just like Mr. Navani, who is here. He's still here. Okay? Those guys have saved everyone in this city a million times over, and you stomped on them. Okay? And the last thing I'll finish with Mayor, because I'm sure my time's almost up. I got a quote told to me earlier from someone. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's fitting for quite a few people up there. Okay? So, when you're driving drunk down a road, and it's not an allegation for you to upset me. When you're driving drunk down a road, okay? A, should you have been driving? No, probably not. Should you have been drinking? No, probably not. Okay? But when you get pulled over, okay, you're going to end up getting a charge, correct? So when you get charged and you go to court, you can pay an attorney as much money as you want, and they can get you off, right? That means that case is dismissed. You still made the mistake, and you still chose to jeopardize everyone.
Mike Novotny, wastewater superintendent. I just want to address a comment that was made earlier, reference the benefits. It was stated that the OPERS that is paid for the employees, that is not part of the benefit package, at least this, what the city pays, the 14%, that is required to be paid. That is the same as in the private sector, their employer, has to pay Social Security. The city does not pay Social Security, it pays OPERS in place. Now, if it were the employees portion that the city was paying, then yes, then it could be considered part of a benefit package. But the 14% that the city is paying is a requirement, just like Social Security is in the private. Just another little tidbit, when a public employee retires, if we have worked anywhere else and have Social Security coming to us, that gets cut by a percentage because we're receiving a public retirement. Unlike the private sector where you may have a retirement from your employer or 401k, and then you're eligible for Social Security, you get both of them. Ours gets cut. So just to clarify that what the city's paying in OPERS is not part of the benefit package. It's mandated and has to be paid. Thank you.
Mr.
That's 2780 East River Road. I don't, I want to make a couple observations. I've been watching this Newton Falls politics show for about 2 seasons now. The end of last season, I realized where the people I thought were doing things right may not have been doing things quite so right. And then I see you guys taking over in season 2, and you guys are screwing it up even worse than the guys in season 1. I'm just,
Point of order. You're making accusations, sir.
this is my opinion.
Oh, you're not allowed to make accusations.
It's
We're
an opinion.
screwing up.
I'm talking.
How do you know we're screwing?
Okay.
Point of order.
But from my observations, just right here, just a minute ago, there was 2 councilmen that got my appreciation because you guys were discussing something that had no business being, in my opinion, being discussed on council floor. And one councilman actually pointed that out. You guys are talking about little one-person meter issues. And 2 of you made the right decision as far as I'm concerned. You thought about it before you made, in my opinion, the wrong one. Just because you're setting a precedent, and I think other people would agree. There's so much hypocrisy and there's so much on social media. You guys just need somehow to start working things out, get along. You fired a city manager that was, and paid him a lot of money to go away. You're supposed to be replacing them. You're not replacing them. I know Pam. I like Pam. She makes great muffins. But she just made a really bad decision firing an employee and even put it on why she did it. And then I look, while I'm sitting back there, for the first time, I'm actually Googling some of this stuff, and I say HBA and WJL, and I see the same name all through it. I don't know whether it's an appearance, whether there's anything true there. I don't know, but it appears to be that way. And when you're dealing with government and stuff like that, appearance of impropriety needs to be looked at. Instead, you should look at it a little bit just to clear it up 100%. I think the administrator of the health plans is what WJL and HPA does, and Pan American's probably the provider that actually provides the health care. And if she's associated with those people, someone needs to look into it.
Point of order.
What's your point of order?
She said she wasn't associated with that. Keep throwing that up. Keep throwing that up.
I'm only throwing.
Do you have any proof of that, sir? I asked you that last week.
Do you have any proof that it's
Why?
not?
Well, yes, we do. There's letters.
There's letters? I don't know.
I'm not.
I'm just saying, I'm just watching. I'm a concerned citizen watching what's going on, and it just doesn't seem. If this exact same situation happened a year and a half ago, social media would have been all over David Lynch. And now it can happen here, and it's kind of like, oh, I don't know. And the social media side of it is what unfortunately got me started in this in the first place. I'm just observation, and that's it. I'm just saying my opinion. Somehow, you guys got to just work together. Get us out of the news, man. We're in the news every time. We fired him last week.
Wrap up.
Thank you.
Time. Thank you, sir.
Michael Harnicher, Street Department. Mr. Boriak, you read that letter from the city of Girard, okay? It was to counsel how it sounded. Did not mention the employees once in that. And we're the ones who are going to take the hit. Nothing against our supervision because of their raise. It affects them less than it does us. Our supervisor, I'm not going to mention names, you know who he is, hasn't told us anything about this. We rely on this to get information. We are in the dark, and as far as meetings, no one knew about it. I feel if we do this, it's a big mistake, and all of you will get calls from employees who have problems. I guarantee that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Katie Carl, 128 West Quarry. There's a lot that you did tonight. Misinformation was given. No, that's not the accusation. That's a fact. You have an executive session on tonight. Don't know who it's about. I'm hoping it's not about the chief because, as was stated earlier, he has shown a lot of leadership. He has shown great promise, and he has shown a lot to our community and given a lot. And he's been there for everybody, for all of our different community needs, functions, everything. And there's no reason why he should be under suspension, number one. And the way it was done, and that the school knew about it days before, is wrong. And that starts at the top. So you all need to think about getting a secure person in the position for your administrator, for the city manager's position, and getting that done as soon as possible, because obviously we need that for the top position, not in acting or interim, and getting that done so that we can get our city and our community back on a level footing so we can all begin to work together. Because too many things are not going in the direction that we need them to go, and keep an eye on that sign, working towards a better tomorrow, because you're not. And we need a community that is. Thank you.
Jim Malone, 210 East Liberty Street. Mrs. Temperate, Mr. Granchi, I think you both made a valid point when you said that you're setting a dangerous precedent with this opt-out. Mrs. Fletcher, you told lots of people, and a lot of people told a lot of people what you told them to tell them. Don't do anything with the opt-out until council straightened this all out. And it never has been straightened out. We found that out tonight after I did a lot of research on it. There's not even an ordinance for it. But tonight, we made an exception for one person. Now, what are we going to do for all those people that you talked to and said, don't do anything with it? Because basically, they just got screwed. And I don't think that's right. And Mr. Granchi and Mrs. Snevert and Mr. Sirocco, maybe you should consider bringing this back up, because a lot of people were told, I was told by Mrs. Spletzer to tell people not to do anything with it until it was straightened out. And it still hasn't been straightened out. And at the beginning, I talked about trust and decency in this council. And I'm ashamed of what I saw tonight. I'm disappointed in you. And Mr. Bariak, the money you were talking about, that was the money you gave to the PAC organization when you were backing us up for the referendums against the city. You didn't give me $1 for my defense. The ladies that baked and sold at the farmers market are the one that gave me the money. I didn't take any money from you. It cost me money. It also cost me a stay in the hospital, and it cost me an implant in my chest that's still there for the next 2 years, monitoring my heart because of the lawsuit that the city manager brought against me. None of which the city paid for. It cost me thousands of dollars in legal bills, none of which the city paid for. So am I sorry that I sued the city and it cost them? No, I'm not. And I like you too. But remember one thing, when you tell me you like me, you told Bob Carlson you liked him right before you fired him.
Tom, did you have something? Okay.
Charlotte Simmons, 365 Warren Road. I'm here also to testify that you, Mrs. Spletzer, told me, do not do nothing. Do not opt out, do not opt in. I had a video chat that come through to me from an RN nurse, concerned citizen. She wanted to ask me, what do I do, Charlotte? I said, well, Miss Spletzer says, don't do nothing yet. Council hasn't made a decision. Well, I regret the decision you made tonight. And yes, my baking group did give Mr. Lawanawanso over $800 in 2 bake sales. That's what we gave to Mr. Lawanawanso. But I'm here to tell all of you up there, your decisions are going to make a big impact on this city. Now, a well-known man said this at one time, but where did it get him? Murdered on the streets in front of his apartment. Tonight I come to you and I say this quote, a dream you dream alone is only a dream, but a dream you dream together is reality, and that's Mr. John Lennon speaking.
Okay, well, you were already up there.
You've already had your 3 minutes.
I don't get any more?
No.
Because I was actually gonna say some good stuff about you guys.
No, it's the council
Because
rules, sir.
you're trying, you're putting a lot of effort out there.
No, we can't, we're gonna have to have everybody come up again. Thank you.
Tom Gregory Films, everyone knows who I am. Just want to let council know about some technical issues we had tonight. We could not live stream for the first 5 minutes. but we were on YouTube and cable after that. So we made the cable channel. And I want to let council know and everybody else listening that before your next council meeting, I'm going to rewire your entire area. Everyone will have your own microphone. I've got a few microphones to spare, and I'm going to donate to the city. I'll schedule that with Kathy. I'll coordinate that with Kathy. So before the next council meeting, everyone will have their own individual microphone. We're going to reroute the PA system and all that. And Pam, you're not going to get an invoice for that. That's all I want to say.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, we'll move into closing remarks. Do we have anything out of Ward 1?
No.
Okay, anything from Mr. Bariak?
Yeah, just, maybe I'm wrong. I've only run a business for 42 years. I pay 12% social security on myself. One of my employees, they pay 7%, I pay 7%. Let's get that clarified right now. The other thing you want to talk about working together. We had 5-0 votes on just about everything we had tonight, or 4-1 or an abstain. I think this council's trying to work together and trying to quit fighting, quit accusations, innuendo. There comes a time when we can't give everything, because when you take out of one pot, you have to take and put it in another pot. Eventually, it catches up to you. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Eventually, you got to pay Peter back. What's been stated over and over and over and over and over and over and over. We didn't create this mess. Well, neither did we. And we're in a position right now that we have to make some tough choices. And I value the employees just as much as anybody else. But I also have had calls, and I'm not going to go down that road, where a lot of people have insurance and they said, well, it's not bad. I don't want to go in there. I don't want to knock anybody down. But Mr. Soul, he has $3,000 per person, $6,000 for family. I didn't want to bring that up tonight. And those guys they're not making $60 or $80 an hour or 40 or 50. But I'm just saying, we're trying, and we went back and we squeezed blood out of a stone to drop it down $1,000. Now, I understand, there's a little bit of a cost there, but there's nothing we can do right now. We don't have the other two, what did you say, 175, 200, up to 240, sir. What was it?
The extra 166 to 172,000.
Yeah. Yeah. And the benefit package, here's the thing. I feel that I'd like to do better, and we will do better for the employees, but we just can't do it right now. Thank you.
Ms. Butzer?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to show some appreciation to Mr. Harnicher. Thank you for coming up and speaking to us. And one thing I do want to also share with you guys that happened during the administration meeting, we did ask the supervisors to do a little bit of research in their particular field of expertise and find out what similar positions are paying in communities that are similar in size to us. So that is some homework that we have given your supervisors to do. And I would like for them to come back, and because we definitely want to make sure that you guys are getting decent pay. And I feel like we've done the best that we can to really give you decent benefits.
Okay,
Well, I just wanted you guys to be aware that we are working with the supervisors to make sure that you guys are getting equitable, decent pay for comparable positions in comparable sized communities. I think we've done the best that we could possibly do with the insurance aspect of the benefits. And the last thing I want to say is I do hope everyone has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Okay, Mr. Ranch, do you have anything?
I do not.
Okay, Mrs. Stemper,
I do not.
okay, Miss Pretty.
The only thing I have to say is, Mike, if you guys want to come in and talk with me, I'd be happy to sit with you tomorrow or Friday and go over things with you. No, I'm talking about tomorrow or Friday. If you and the guys in your department want to come, and I'll sit down with you guys and explain it. Okay? That's all I have.
You know, I was, looking at Mike, he's been a dear friend of mine for a long time, and seen him out walking his dog yesterday. I was wanting him to come my direction because not only was I making burgers and I always make extra. So, but he went the other direction, but I wanted to give him a hug and a high five. He's one of my guys, so much so that last year I was asked to give the key to the city to some silly individual on the turnpike, but I don't even know who he is. I had no idea who he is. And I told Mike, I said, if I were to give a key to the city out, it would be to you and our workers here. I appreciate each of you so much. And I know last year during basketball season, we looked and there was all these schools that were closed because of bad weather. We were like the only ones that played because you guys did such an awesome job cleaning our roads off in the winter time. Our kids, everybody on the basketball team appreciate it. I appreciate you. I appreciate the citizens here. And I want to thank everybody for coming out. Each individual that is here, I look forward to when I see in the community and such. And the council here, we went through a lot of legislation, and we didn't rush through it. I don't believe, even though I kind of put something out there to where you got to look at the time you're spending on something. And I think it was thoroughly discussed. I think that we got information. You passed a lot of legislation. You did really, really well. I'm proud of you. And I do disagree with individuals that say something about moving forward. We're moving forward. Can't help it that the people that brought in here, we got new individuals here. Chris hasn't been here long. And these individuals had to reach up just to hit bottom. That's the kind of shape we're in. Individuals don't realize that. Look at our finance director and wondering why is he getting paid this? Why is he putting these hours in? Because he's got a mess to deal with. And I've said it before, I wasn't joking. If it wasn't for the work that Sean's put in, we'd all be going collecting aluminum cans that have the lights on. I mean, our finances are in that out of shape, but he's pulling us out of it. We're going to be pulled out of it. And I appreciate it. We're definitely heading in the right direction, but I don't want to be always heading in the right direction all the time. As I jokingly say about the Browns fans all the time. I'm kind of a Browns fan. Hey, but it's always next year. Well, if next year doesn't begin now, next year may never come. We're definitely going in the right direction. I thank everybody up here. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, everybody on council, everybody on staff, the citizens here. I appreciate you, and that's all I have. It's everybody. Do we have a motion then to recess into executive session? Or
Second.
I believe I got to probably read these or no. Okay. All right. For the items that are checked off, we got who was the first, who was the second?
I was seconded
Do we need,
to go into
we need
executive
to add
session.
number 5 for confidentiality?
Do we need to add?
Or is that just specifically for contract?
Well, anything, we don't really need to because anything that's in there needs to be kept confidential.
Okay.
So, anytime, whenever Mrs. King is ready to call for the roll.
Franchi,
Yes.
Stemper,
Yes.
Rocco,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Spletzer.
Yes.
20 minutes.
I don't know about anybody else here, but I'm gonna stop for a pit stop real quick.
Cash, I'm gonna go to the restroom.
See, you can take a look.
Do you know what the hourly salary might be about? I checked.
technology bill anymore.
I got you there with
Okay, your PA system is going hot now. All right, is everybody in here?
It's gonna be a long.
You think?
I'm going to work. Yeah.
Seeing them at midnight shift for me,
Yeah, like 5 to 3.
5 to 3.
Yeah, 5 p to 3. Yeah. It's not bad. I make my own schedule sometimes I'm there between 3 p and 7 a. Something
All
else.
right, so we have a motion to leave executive session and return to regular council.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay,
Yes.
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 okay, back to regular council, and do we have somebody who wants to make a motion to instruct the city manager to file charges against Mr. Fixler in accordance with the report to Newton Falls City Council regarding Gene Fixler, date December 20th of 2021?
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
So second.
Whenever Mrs. King is ready for the roll.
Yes.
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 Okay, motion passes. And then I'll go back with you, Mrs. King, if you didn't get it.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, this was to instruct the city manager.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do
I
we-
move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay,
Yes.
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 meeting adjourned.